So I opened up to a new page in my sketchbook, and depending on what size paper you have is going to determine how big of a head shape you're going to draw. Now, we talked about how our head shapes are not circles, they are ovals. So whenever we draw our portrait, we're going to start with more of an oval shape, but we're actually just going to be doing the bottom of that oval shape. So it's going to be more of a U shape, okay? Now, if we did our head shape really small right in the middle of our paper, it would be really hard to draw the rest of our details. But we also don't want to make it super big on our paper, because then we wouldn't have room to draw our hair later or our neck and shoulders. So when we do this, we are going to start with a U shape that is a pretty good medium size. In the bottom of our U shape, boys and girls, you want to look in the mirror and kind of determine what kind of chin shape you have. And if it is more pointy, you're going to want to draw a more pointy shape on the bottom. If it's round, you're going to want to draw a round shape. Or some have a little bit of a wider shape on the bottom. Just kind of look at your chin shape and determine what kind of shape you should draw on the bottom of your U shape. Okay, so from here, we are going to start to draw some guidelines. Now, we're going to be drawing various guidelines throughout our practice drawing, and we are going to be numbering them as well so that we know why and when to draw the guidelines. Remember, your guidelines will be getting erased, so you're going to want to draw them very lightly, okay? On our good copy drawing, boys and girls, we will not number our guidelines. We will draw our guidelines for our good copy, but we will not number them. We are just going to number them in our sketchbook so that we know when and why we are drawing them. So, my first guideline is going to come halfway down our head shape. We talked about how our eyes do not sit up in our forehead. They are actually right in the middle of our head shape. So I'm going to come halfway down my U shape that I drew, and I'm going to draw a very light guideline side to side. And next to this guideline, I'm going to write a number 1. So I know that's my first guideline that I'm going to want to draw. Now the next guideline is also going to cut my head shape in half, but we're not going to go horizontal this time. We are going to go vertically. So I'm going to draw a vertical light guideline straight down the middle of my head shape. And at the top here, I'm going to label this one number 2. The next guideline we are going to draw is going to be from our number 1 guideline to our chin. So this area here we are actually going to also cut in half. So I'm going to find the middle of that area, and I'm going to draw a very light guideline there. This is going to be my number 3 guideline. Very lightly so that we can erase it easily later on. Now, we're going to start right on that number 1 guideline, and we're going to start with our eyes. Now, our eyes are an ellipse shape. An ellipse is an oval that is pointed on each side, kind of like a football shape, and everybody's eyes are shaped a little bit differently. Some are more round, some are pointed on the outsides more than others, but the top of my ellipse shape is going to go above my number 1 guideline, and the bottom is going to go below. Now, I'm going to try and do this same exact shape for my eyes on each side because our face is the same on both sides, and we call that being symmetrical. Now, inside of our ellipse shape, we are going to start with our iris. The iris is the colored part of your eye, whether you have blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, hazel. Your iris is that colored part of your eye. And when we are just relaxed, boys and girls, we cannot see the top or the bottom of our iris. Our eyelids are covering them. So I'm just going to be drawing the sides of my iris on each side. And then in the middle of your iris, you have your pupil. That's that black circle in the middle of your iris. And you can see the full pupil when you are relaxed. So we are going to draw a smaller circle inside of our iris on each side. When your eyes are open, boys and girls, there needs to be somewhere for your eyelids to go. So when you open your eyes, you have a crease above your iris, above your eye. So right above our eye shape, we are going to start right here in the corner, and I'm going to draw a parallel line that follows the shape of my eye, that just slightly above my eye shape. That's going to be the crease of my eyelid. Now, whether you are a boy or a girl, everybody has eyelashes, so we do have to draw them. Now, there's a couple ways you could do eyelashes. I'm going to show you the very simple way on this eye, and then I'll show you a more detailed way on this eye, okay? For the very simple way, you'd start in the inside corner of your eye, and you would just do a series of lines that come from the eye shape up past the eyelid crease on the top. On the bottom, I would do the same thing, but I would start over here towards the iris, this inside part of my iris, and do short lines towards the outside corner of my eye. Now, if you wanted to do a little bit more detailed eyelashes, you would start with a series of U-shapes, small U-shapes, under the top line of your eye shape. And from those U-shapes, you would continue the U up and out over top of that eyelid crease. This gives it a little bit of a more realistic look. But then on the bottom, I would do the same small short lines that I did on my other line. Now, above our eyes, we want to make sure we give ourselves eyebrows. This is one thing we do not want to forget. So I usually like to go about 1 finger length above my eye. And when I do my eyebrow, I'm going to start in the same area that the corner of my eye started. And I'm going to make sure that I make my eyebrow a shape. I don't want it to just be a line. I want to make sure I'm closing my lines in and giving my eyebrow a shape and trying to do the same exact thing on each side. Bless you. For our nose, we are going to start on the inside of each line, and I'm just going to do a curved line that starts right next to my eye. It comes down and out slightly away from our middle guideline, and I'm going to do this on each side. Then I'm going to move down to my number 3 guideline. This is to help us see where our nose is going to sit. So right above my number 3 guideline, I'm going to do a smile curve, a small smile curve. And then on each side of that smile curve, I'm going to do a small downward curve that comes down to my number 3 guideline on each side. Now on each side of those downward curves, I'm going to do 2 inward curves, kind of like parenthesis lines on each side that start above my downward curve and come down towards my number 3 guideline. Now the next guideline we are going to draw actually comes from the bottom of our eyes. So right here in the middle of each eye, I am going to draw a guideline straight down towards the bottom of my head shape. And right below these guidelines, I'm going to number these number 4. These are going to help us place our mouth. After I've drawn my number 4 guidelines, I have one more guideline to draw, and that is going to be from my number 3 to the bottom of my chin. I'm going to cut that area in half, and I'm going to draw my last light guideline here, and I'm going to number this number 5. Now remember, when we do our good drawings, we want to draw our guidelines very lightly, but we do not need to number them. We just number them in our sketchbook so that we can look back and see why and when to draw our guidelines. Okay? So, right above my number 5 guideline, I'm going to do something similar to what I did here in my nose. I'm going to come up a little bit and I'm going to draw a smile curve, a small smile curve. And then on each side, I'm going to do a downward curve, just like we did for our nose, but I'm not going to go quite as far down. I'm going to make these ones just a little bit wider. From my downward curve, I would look in the mirror and see kind of how my mouth falls on my face. So if your top lip kind of curves down, then you would bring the line down towards that number 5 guideline. Or maybe if you wanted to give yourself a little bit of a smile, you would take your line and curve it up and over towards your number 4 guideline. Whatever you do on one side, you would want to do on the other. From the end of your line, you would want to take the end of each line, curve it down towards our number 5 guideline on each side. This is going to be for your top lip. From your top lip, you're going to take a look at where your bottom lip meets your top lip. It might start in more towards the corners, the inside corners of your top lip, or it might start out where your top lip ends. So take a look at your bottom lip, and wherever you feel like it starts, you're going to take it, you're going to curve it down below that number 5 guideline, and then back up to the same point on the other side where you started. Boys and girls, you want to make sure that your top lip and your bottom lip are relatively the same width. You don't want one to be really thick and one to be a lot thinner, okay? So try and make them as similar as possible. From here, we need to give ourselves a neck. Something needs to be nice and strong to hold up our heads, right? So we talked about how we don't have lollipop necks. We don't have really skinny necks. We have thick necks that hold our heads up. So our neck is actually going to start right on the outside of our number 4 guidelines. It's going to curve in towards that number 4 guideline and then come down. Now, everybody's neck's a little bit different, so depending on how long you feel your neck is how long you should make your necklines. At the bottom of your necklines, you're going to connect the bottom of your lines with whatever shape your shirt collar is. So if you have a t-shirt on and your shirt collar is rounded, you would do a curved line. If you have a V-neck on, then you would do 2 lines that come to a point. I'm just going to do a curved line for now. And then we also talked about how your shoulders are not roller coasters. They do not go all the way up and then come all the way back down. Your shoulders come straight out past your head shape. So I'm going to make sure that I come out further than my head, and then I'm just going to drop down to my arm. And I'm going to do this on both sides. Now, boys and girls, we are not drawing hair today. We will spend another day on drawing hair, so we do not have to worry about that today.